Picture the arrivals hall at any major international airport. It's usually a scene of low-grade panic, people frantically filling out landing cards, queuing for visa stamps, clutching return tickets like lifelines. I was watching this play out recently, and the contrast was jarring. While travelers from huge, dominant nations were stuck in line, stressing over entry requirements, I saw this one traveler who just breezed through, no questions asked, no visa fees paid. He was holding a Singaporean passport. Now, usually these global power rankings move at a glacial pace, but what happened here is almost unheard of. Singapore didn't just gradually climb the ladder, they rocketed from a mediocre 30th place straight to the #2 spot globally. In the blink of an eye, access to 175 countries was just unlocked. It makes you pause and ask, how did a tiny island nation manage to negotiate that kind of massive global trust so quickly? It wasn't an accident. It was a calculated, brilliant diplomatic maneuver that changed the game entirely. Okay, so let's unpack this. This deep dive, it's really about tracing that incredible leap in global standing. We're going to move beyond, the simple stuff like geography and military might. We want to examine the actual machinery of international trust. Things like strategic diplomacy, strong governance, and, well, the surprising economic firepower you get from a highly mobile passport. Our mission today is really to figure out the exact recipe for manufacturing that kind of global trust.
And what's so fascinating here is that the ability for a country's citizens to cross borders, that passport strength, it isn't just about convenience for them. It's really not. It's a measurable, tangible outcome of a country's effectiveness. And I think this is the crucial part. It's reliability on the world stage. We'll be connecting the dots between a nation's deep commitment to good governance, something you can actually measure with these big international indices, and its tangible global influence. We want to show you precisely why governance capability is, it's fast becoming the true diplomatic superpower. And the Singapore story is just the perfect accelerated case study for understanding this whole dynamic in the 21st century.
Right. So to really dissect how Singapore pulled this off, this diplomatic leap, we can't just rely on anecdotes. We need something more concrete. So we have to ground our analysis in a formal, measurable framework. We're using the Chandler Good Government Index, the CGGI, for 2024. This is an index built specifically to measure the capabilities and, the effectiveness of governments across 113 countries.
And the fundamental idea underpinning the CGGI, it's that good governance is not just a nice idea, or a checklist of regulations you tick off. No, it's the absolute non-negotiable foundation for three critical national outcomes: national cohesion, long-term prosperity, and what they call future readiness. So if a government is demonstrably effective and reliable on the inside, that earns it credibility on the outside. And that credibility, that's what translates directly into diplomatic power.
And speaking of internal effectiveness, Singapore's, it's the perfect anchor nation for our analysis. They didn't just rank well, they topped the CGGI overall rank. They came in first in 2024. But if governance is about capabilities, what does that first place rank actually mean? It suggests they aren't just, fighting today's fires well, but they're consistently charting a viable, credible course towards a better future and cultivating public trust all along the way.
That's the key distinction. It's about consistent capability over time. It's not a one-off thing. The index breaks down the components of effective governance into 7 core pillars. And these 7 pillars, when you take them together, they basically define the entire recipe for earning global trust, because they cover the whole spectrum of government action, from high-level strategy all the way down to day-to-day financial management.
Okay, let's look closely at this framework, because these pillars define the entire system we're analyzing today. So first, you've got leadership and foresight. That's having a clear, well-communicated path forward that inspires public confidence.
Right. Not just a vision, but a believable one.
Second, robust laws and policies. This is the legal and regulatory structure, the stuff that ensures fairness and stability.
The bedrock, really.
Third, strong institutions, which I take to mean the functional capability of the bureaucracy to actually execute and deliver services consistently.
Yes, to get things done.
Fourth, is financial stewardship, managing the nation's money prudently and transparently, which, reduces sovereign risk.
Hugely important.
Fifth, an attractive marketplace. So making the country appealing to global capital, investment, and talent.
Exactly.
Sixth, global influence and reputation. Now, this is the direct link to the passport power we started with, and we'll definitely unpack that one in detail. And then finally, helping people rise. Tangible, positive socioeconomic outcomes for citizens that signal domestic stability to the world. I have to pause on this idea of trust itself, because this framework seems to be measuring more than just, efficiency. It's measuring ethical behavior. The analysis shows this incredibly strong correlation, an R value of 0.90, between a country's overall CGGI score and its score on the Index of Public Integrity, which is essentially a global measure of corruption risk.
That R equals 0.90. I mean, for anyone in statistics, that is what you'd call a near-perfect correlation. And the implication is profound. It means you simply cannot separate governance capability from integrity. They're two sides of the same coin. When a country scores high in governance, it is virtually guaranteed to score low in corruption risk. It's almost a one-to-one relationship.
But statistically, most real-world social and political data sets, they rarely hit correlations that high. That feels almost too clean.
What specific variable are we missing here that makes this connection so near flawless?
Well, I think it speaks to the systemic nature of trust. Integrity isn't some isolated ethical quality floating around on its own. It's built into the very structures of good governance. Think about it. If your institutions are strong, that's Pillar 3, and your laws are robust, Pillar 2, and your financial management is transparent, Pillar 4, then the opportunities for corruption, and by extension, the risk of disappointing your international partners, are just drastically reduced. This is particularly crucial for a small nation. If you're Singapore, you lack the military or geographic leverage of a superpower. Your only real leverage is your reputation for absolute reliability. You have to be the safe, trustworthy harbor in a turbulent global environment. So if global investors, foreign governments, and international bodies don't trust the government to operate ethically and consistently, if that public integrity measure is low, that every single negotiation, every trade deal, every visa agreement becomes exponentially harder. It's like trying to secure a loan without a credit history.
Exactly. That's a perfect analogy. When a foreign government agrees to a visa-free arrangement with Singapore, they aren't just trusting the individual passport holder. They are trusting the entire legal, security, and administrative infrastructure that backs that passport. They trust that Singapore's data on its citizens is accurate, that its justice system works, and that it honors its commitments. This internal competence is the actual currency of diplomatic trust.
All right, let's focus on the payoff then. We've established that the ability to cross borders quickly is the physical manifestation of this trust. The rise of a country's passport strength, it's not just some arbitrary ranking. It's explicitly measured as an indicator within that global influence and reputation pillar of the CGGI. So this is where we can actually quantify a country's diplomatic standing.
And the strength of a passport, which is measured by the sheer number of visa-free arrangements its holders enjoy globally, is, well, it's perhaps the most visceral diplomatic outcome a nation can achieve. Every single time a country grants visa-free access, it is effectively endorsing the integrity of the issuing nation. For a small state like Singapore, this accumulation of endorsements is a direct, tangible tool for overcoming its geographical limitations.
And we shouldn't underestimate the scale of opportunity this unlocks. I mean, for Singapore, rocketing from 30th to 2nd, it meant direct access for its citizens to over 175 countries without the bureaucratic friction of visa applications. That translates directly into massive economic advantage, which I know we'll get to in a bit.
Indeed. But passport strength is only one factor in the broader global influence pillar. The pillar measures 4 specific areas a government has to manage to project an effective global standing.
The first one is nation brand. This isn't selling products, right? It's about the appeal and image of the country to non-commercial stakeholders like students, academics, diplomats, cultural institutions.
And this is where deliberate, active government strategy comes in. It doesn't just happen. Consider Chile. They run a highly coordinated state initiative called Image de Chile, specifically for brand management. They are not just waiting for the world to notice them. They are actively promoting 3 specific, consistent pillars: sustainability, democracy, and diversity. By weaving those themes into all of their international outreach, they are intentionally enhancing their global perception as a stable, forward-thinking, and reliable partner. And that reinforces diplomatic perception.
That's a fascinating pivot, using national identity as a piece of diplomatic infrastructure. Okay, the second component is international trade, which measures the capabilities and access to buy and sell goods and services beyond your own borders.
And Singapore's ranking of first globally in international trade is not surprising, really, given its identity as a global hub. But that rank is achieved through this intense commitment to efficiency and transparency. It validates their open economic structure, their world-class logistics, and their ability to act as a neutral and efficient intermediary for global commerce. all of which are factors that reinforce global trust in their economic competence.
And the third one is international diplomacy. This is measured pretty simply by the extent of a nation's diplomatic representation and presence abroad. It's the government showing it's actively engaged on the world stage, whether that's through embassies, consulates, or permanent missions.
So you combine those four: passport strength, nation brand, international trade, and diplomatic presence, and you get the full picture of a nation's global reach. But what makes Singapore so successful in this pillar, I think, is its rock-solid foundation in those internal capabilities we mentioned earlier.
Right. Can you give us a quick reminder of those anchor capabilities?
Sure. They're ranked first in ethical leadership, tied for first, which is vital for that low corruption risk. Crucially, they are first in coordination, meaning their government speaks and acts with a single, unified voice. That's huge. They're also first in data capability, showing technical competence and future readiness. They're tied for first in implementation, which proves they can deliver on their promises, not just draft good plans. And finally, they are tied for first in country risk premium. This means the global financial markets view their sovereign bonds as the safest bet possible.
Hold on. I want to unpack that coordination ranking for a second.
Yeah.
If Singapore is rated first globally in coordination, what does that practically mean for, say, a foreign embassy or a potential trade partner trying to negotiate with them?
It means radical predictability. It really does. It means that the foreign minister's promise is backed up by the finance ministry's budget and the trade agency's regulations. When there's deep coordination, a foreign partner doesn't have to worry that a new domestic political faction will suddenly overturn the agreement, or that different arms of the government will undercut each other, which happens all the time in other places. For a diplomatic partner, negotiating once with a country that ranks high in coordination is worth negotiating 10 times with a country where internal departmental misalignment is, just rife. That coherence is the hidden engine powering their diplomatic success and ultimately their passport strength.
So the foundation is laid by this stellar internal governance. And now we look at the execution. How does a physically small nation state like Singapore, one that can't project military power, secure this exceptionally high degree of global trust and mobility? They seem to have devised a calculated strategic playbook that leverages their economic competence as their main diplomatic asset.
This is a classic example of strategic economic diplomacy, the use of economic tools to meet foreign policy goals. For small states, diplomacy is just this delicate art of maximizing opportunity through absolute reliability and establishing institutionalized interdependence.
And it looks like they rely on 4 specific, calculated diplomatic strategies. The first is a heavy reliance on free trade agreements, or FTAs, and securing deep market access.
The FTAs are the absolute cornerstone of their strategy, but crucially, they are not just instruments for reducing tariffs. When Singapore negotiates an FTA, it is strategically leveraging the trade agreement to enable a protraction, a deepening, and extension of long-term trade linkages, which then solidifies their political relations. I mean, if you are dependent on Singapore for efficient, trustworthy trade, you are far less likely to challenge them diplomatically, right? Every FTA creates this deep network of mutually beneficial reliance, which extends Singapore's diplomatic space far, far beyond its shores.
So an FTA with Singapore is essentially a long-term investment in their political stability and reliability.
Yeah.
Okay, the second strategy is early engagement in emerging markets.
And this demonstrates incredible foresight. While many major powers often focus their diplomatic energy on, their traditional allies, Singapore prioritizes engagement with fast-growing emerging economies. Think Asia, Africa, Latin America. By establishing strong, deep trade and political ties early on, they place themselves optimally to expand influence and economic space. They're anticipating future global shifts rather than just reacting to them. They're trying to lock in the partnerships that will define the next 50 years.
That's a huge bet, though. Doesn't that mean they are taking on higher risk by committing resources to less established, maybe less stable markets?
It's a calculated risk, and it's mitigated by their own high standards. Which brings us right to the third strategy, leveraging the brand name through their government-linked corporations, or GLCs. These are companies, often run commercially, in which the government maintains a controlling stake.
We should probably define the function of these GLCs more clearly. They're not just state-owned enterprises in the old-fashioned sense, are they?
No, not at all. They are commercial entities that act as international ambassadors of the Singaporean system. They play a catalytic role in trade and infrastructure development abroad. Because these GLCs operate under the shadow of the state's integrity, they ensure that their economic efforts are uniform. And that the national brand name, the one associated with unparalleled efficiency, integrity, and stability, perpetuates itself through these robust government-to-government collaborations. When a developing nation partners with a Singaporean GLC to build, say, an industrial park or a port, they're buying into the entire high-standard regulatory and ethical framework of Singapore itself.
That consistency is key then. If you partner with a Singaporean GLC, you're not just getting capital, you're getting a guaranteed level of administrative quality.
Exactly. And the fourth strategy is sharing best practices, or what you might call cultivating allies. Singapore actively cultivates international support and allies by sharing its governance models. Through training programs, collaborative projects, particularly in areas where they rank highly like coordination, urban planning, or digital strategy, they offer their success as a usable template for others.
But doesn't giving away your best practices dilute your competitive advantage? Is this just altruism, or is it a purely strategic move?
It is entirely strategic. It's an investment in diplomatic capital. By helping other nations improve their own governance, Singapore builds this global constituency of allies who have a vested interest in Singapore's continued success and stability. And furthermore, it reinforces the narrative that their system works and is exportable, which further cements their reputation as a capable, reliable state.
And underlying all of this meticulous strategy is their non-negotiable adherence to the rule of law.
Absolutely. Their ranking of 9th globally in the robust laws and policies pillar is their greatest shield. They consistently engage through international institutions while upholding international law. This provides the city-state with an equal standing in international forums, ensuring that despite its small size, it's treated as a major legal and economic player. When they enter a negotiation or sign a treaty, the world trusts that the agreements will be honored, enforced consistently, transparently, and impartially. That trust is the most potent and dependable weapon in a small nation's diplomatic arsenal.
Let's pivot to the quantifiable return on this investment in reliability. We've established the strategy, now let's talk dollars and cents. The strength of a passport is so much more than a point of national pride. It's a powerful, direct economic driver. So how can we quantify the strong relationship between extensive visa-free travel and a nation's economic vitality?
Well, a strong passport acts as a proxy for the entire conducive business environment. Research confirms an almost universal truth. Countries whose citizens can travel unhindered across borders tend to have far more vibrant, interconnected economies. Visa-free access just reduces friction in talent mobility, it facilitates rapid commercial negotiation, and it increases the speed of global capital flows.
And the data supporting this connection is actually quite compelling. We can look at the strong correlation between these passport strength indices and the World Bank's Ease of Doing Business Index.
Exactly. Consider Singapore, which possesses one of the strongest passports and ranks second globally on the Ease of Doing Business Index. Or New Zealand, which tops the Ease of Doing Business Index and consistently remains in the top 10 on the Henley Passport Index. The access literally facilitates opportunity by removing logistical hurdles.
And the opposite trend is also starkly visible when you look at restricted mobility. Take India, for example. Their passport weakened, slipping from 77th to 86th between 2010 and 2019. It also ranks significantly lower on the Ease of Doing Business Index at 77th.
This correlation suggests that restricted mobility often places a nation beyond the primary ambit of global capital flows. When your citizens, especially your business travelers, your executives, your researchers, are restricted by visa requirements, it creates friction. And that friction directly translates into higher costs of doing business. It slows down deals, it limits talent recruitment, and it forces companies to relocate regional hubs to countries where mobility is guaranteed. A strong passport, therefore, is a key component in reducing this commercial friction.
So restricted mobility is essentially a measurable tax on economic dynamism. A strong passport, then, acts as a powerful proxy for the entire attractive marketplace pillar, where Singapore ranks second overall. What are the specific indicators under that pillar that signal to global capital that a country is worth investing in?
There are 4 critical areas that global capital analyzes, which a strong passport helps certify. First, attracting investments. We look at countries that are magnets for global finance. Ireland, for instance, which performs exceptionally well in trust and business confidence, ranks second globally here. The stability, the integrity, and the predictable legal framework of Ireland have resulted in this significant concentration of global finance. 17 of the world's 20 largest banks and 11 of the 15 largest insurance companies have operations there. That is a direct result of institutional trust.
That concentration of global finance is astounding, and it's directly attributable to the confidence in Irish governance and market stability, not necessarily its geography or size.
Precisely. The second indicator is stable business regulations. Businesses hate uncertainty. The ability to ensure a stable long-term policy environment for business is critical for major multi-decade investments. For instance, the U.S., ranking 7th in stable business regulations, supports its attractive marketplace ranking, particularly for rapidly evolving sectors like AI. Predictability is priced into investment decisions.
Third is logistics competence. Passport power is inherently linked to the efficiency of cross-border trade and transport infrastructure. And this is measured by, a worldwide survey of freight forwarders and carriers on things like customs efficiency, the quality of logistics infrastructure, and the ease of physical cross-border movement.
Right. And finally, you need a strong underpinning of property rights and a robust macroeconomic environment, meaning low and stable inflation and low unemployment. All these factors, from legal protection for your assets to efficient border crossings, they all come together to signal to the world that this is a safe, effective, and profitable place to conduct global business. The passport simply becomes the universally recognized badge certifying the reliability of that entire ecosystem.
We've established the payoff, the economic and diplomatic advantage. Now we have to look deeper into the capability required to produce it. Diplomacy and these complex global negotiations, they fundamentally require long-term foresight. Which brings us to the leadership and foresight pillar, where Singapore ranks first. What does genuine long-term vision look like in practice?
This pillar is about a government's ability to develop, express, and consistently pursue desired long-term national goals. It's about anticipating future challenges instead of simply responding to today's crises. You cannot negotiate a multi-decade FTA or a complex visa agreement without demonstrating a credible multi-decade vision.
Egypt provides a substantive example of this commitment with its Vision 2030 blueprint. They rank 11th in the long-term vision indicator. And that's more than just a document they published, right? It's an institutional framework.
Oh, it is a massive institutional commitment. Vision 2030 is a strategic plan that aligns with both the UN Sustainable Development Goals and the African Union's Agenda 2063. The strategy explicitly includes difficult internal reforms, restructuring institutions for the new administrative capital, reforming public administration, and, crucially, establishing control and governance units within ministries and agencies. These units are the implementation force, tasked with ensuring adherence to regulations and promoting good governance across the entire bureaucracy.
That institutional reform must be incredibly difficult to execute, especially in large bureaucracies. Because the operational reality of global agreements, like upholding the terms of a visa waiver, rests entirely on the bureaucracy's capacity to deliver. This is why that strong institutions pillar is so critical.
And that's where internal coordination separates the capable from the chaotic. Look at Uganda, which offers a great model. They rank 23rd in coordination. Their success stems from their structured National Development Plan process, or NDP.
How does the NDP specifically enforce coordination across different and often competing ministries?
Well, the NDP acts as the central strategic blueprint. Every single ministry's strategic plan, whether it's health, education, or trade, must align explicitly and measurably with the national goals laid out in that NDP. Performance against these aligned goals is continually monitored and evaluated by the Central Office of the Prime Minister. This robust internal system eliminates departmental silos and demonstrates reliability and coherence to external partners. So when a foreign partner negotiates with Uganda, they know that the commitments are centralized, aligned, and monitored, which drastically reduces the political and administrative risk.
And we cannot overlook financial stewardship, which is perhaps the purest measure of credibility. If a country can't manage its own money, why should the world trust its diplomatic promises?
This is where Botswana shines. Botswana ranks in the global top 10 for long-term vision at 6th and coordination at 3rd. But they also excel in financial stewardship, ranking 19th globally for government debt. Prudent financial management is a decades-long commitment.
And what does that mean practically? How does Botswana's fiscal prudence translate into global confidence?
They have managed to keep their debt to GDP ratio consistently below 20% between 2004 and 2024. This is despite absorbing massive external shocks like the 2007 economic crisis and the COVID-19 pandemic. This meticulous financial management does two key things. First, it lowers the cost of their sovereign borrowing, making their debt extremely attractive. And second, it profoundly enhances confidence in global markets. When a country handles its money with such long-term prudence, the world trusts its promises and views it as an exceptionally low-risk partner.
Finally, global trust is increasingly judged not just by how well a government handles the past, but by how prepared it is for the future. The ability to embrace and regulate disruptive technology must show capability and resilience.
This is a perfect modern indicator. There is a very strong correlation, that R equals 0.90 statistic again, between the CGGI scores and the Government AI Readiness Index. The governments that score highest on current effectiveness are almost always the most prepared for future technological transformation.
And Singapore, being first overall in the CGGI, naturally has a systematic, strategic approach to artificial intelligence.
Yes. They aren't just buying AI, they are strategically developing a comprehensive AI ecosystem. This involves providing significant AI grants to local businesses, collaborating heavily with academic institutions, like establishing the Center of Excellence for Testing and Research of Autonomous Vehicles, or CETRAN, and rolling out customized nationwide training initiatives like Learn AI.
Why is this so important for diplomatic trust?
Because it demonstrates they are building the regulatory roadmap themselves. They established the Data Science and Artificial Intelligence Division, or DSAI, specifically to test, implement, and accelerate the technology across various government agencies. When a foreign company or government considers partnering with Singapore on, say, smart city initiatives or cross-border data flows, they are confident that Singapore possesses both the technical competence, the R&D, and the regulatory framework, the DSA, to manage the risk effectively. This forward-looking systemic reliability is a key measure of diplomatic trust in the modern age.
The ultimate test of all this governance capability is whether it translates into tangible results for the citizens. This is the helping people rise pillar. It's critical because domestic satisfaction and outcomes, they feed directly back into the narrative of international trust.
Exactly. When citizens are satisfied and the society is stable, that signals profound internal capability to external observers. It radically reduces the perceived geopolitical risk of partnering with that nation. One key metric here is the Satisfaction with Public Services indicator, measuring citizen happiness with transport, infrastructure, and education.
Vietnam provides a standout case here, ranking third globally in citizen satisfaction. And this high public satisfaction isn't arbitrary. It's supported by significant, visible infrastructure investment.
Precisely. Vietnam spends 5.7% of its GDP on infrastructure, making it the second highest spender in Asia after China. That level of capital deployment visibly improves the daily lives of citizens through new roads, better transport, and modernized energy systems.
And it's coupled with rapid digitalization efforts, isn't it?
Yes. They launched the National Public Service Portal, which now offers over 2,200 public services online. This visibly connects people to their government, it reduces bureaucratic red tape, and it streamlines administration. Vietnam even rigorously measures the satisfaction using their own CPES index, and they're aiming for a 90% satisfaction score by 2025. This focus on measurable citizen outcomes directly feeds into the trust narrative. A country that efficiently serves its people is a country that can efficiently serve its global partners.
If we turn back to Singapore's own high ranking in the Helping People Rise pillar, their fourth globally, their health system is a perfect microcosm of their entire governance model. They use foresight and management to achieve superior outcomes.
Singapore's health system is often studied globally because it's a sustainable, high-quality model built on three core governance-driven principles that ensure value over cost.
The first principle is co-payment, which, surprisingly, started incredibly small. I think they were charging just 50 cents per visit to polyclinics decades ago.
That small fee was highly strategic. It wasn't about revenue, it was about behavioral conditioning. It sent the message that healthcare is affordable, but it cannot be free, ensuring sustainability and value retention among the population, minimizing waste.
And the second principle is leveraging market forces, which sounds a little contradictory for a government-managed system.
Well, they allow a robust private sector to develop alongside a very strong public sector. Crucially, they use the public sector clinics as a continuous cost benchmark to keep overall market prices grounded and competitive. This prevents private inflation while maintaining high standards. And the third is freedom of choice, allowing citizens to choose between public or private options, which further drives quality improvement across the entire system.
That dedication to value over cost, rather than simply chasing raw quality metrics, is the mark of meticulous financial stewardship applied to social programs.
And their foresight extends even further into data management and future crises. They're undertaking these advanced initiatives like the Precise SG-100K Genomic Data Project.
What does collecting genomic data from 100,000 citizens signal to the world about Singaporean governance?
It signals profound capability and long-term planning. They're collecting genomic data from 100,000 citizens and combining it with digital phenotype data from their medical records. This allows for massive predictive data analysis to better understand the population and prepare the health system for personalized medicine and, future pandemics. This level of forward-looking, systematic, and ethically managed data capability reinforces international faith, not just in their health outcomes, but in the enduring quality of their governing system itself. The incredible, rapid ascent of a small nation on the Global Mobility Index reveals a profound modern reality. In the current era of interconnected global challenges and intense talent competition, geopolitical power is no longer solely dictated by geographical size or military might. It is increasingly determined by the quiet, meticulous accumulation of governing capability, the ability to institutionalize long-term vision, rigorously manage public finances, and continually strengthen robust systems. This competence creates an unshakable, quantifiable form of global credibility that manifests directly into unlocked international access and enhanced economic influence.